Hello everyone. In this last lecture of this week, we will be talking about another way of doing usability evaluation, which is called as cognitive walkthrough. This one is a very special way of doing evaluation where I am trying to understand through experts what might be the learning difficulties of a particular design solution. So I will explain the cognitive walkthrough as a task-based inspection method focused on learnability for new users. We will apply the 4 cognitive walkthrough questions to each action in a task sequence. Then we will conduct a structured walkthrough and turn failure stories into concrete testable design fixes. So what is cognitive walkthrough? It is a task-based inspection that views an interface through a first-time user's eyes. It is again not something which is done with users. This is done by experts. So experts step through a task exactly as a first-time user would, action by action. The focus is on learnability in this particular usability evaluation method. It evaluates how easily new or infrequent users can learn an interface through exploration alone. It is built on theories of exploratory learning. Users act, interpret the feedback they get and adjust. It is also an inspection method. So like heuristic evaluation, it needs no users, but it is structured tightly around one specific task. So the experts that you will be taking in for doing the cognitive walkthrough, you have to give them the details of the first time users for whom the test is supposed to be conducted. So the experts will then try to think, considering those typologies of users, what are the different learning problems that they might face. The 4 walkthrough questions that the experts will judge your design against are: the right goal. Will the user be trying to achieve the correct effect at this step of the task? So for every task, this particular question will be asked. Is the action visible? Will the user notice that the correct action is available to them? Action effect link. Will the user associate the correct action with the effect they want to achieve? Is progress visible? After acting, will the user see feedback showing that progress was made? So for each and every task, for each and every step, the expert will try to answer these 4 questions for the given typology of users that you have selected. So to conduct this cognitive walkthrough, we will have 4 steps. In the first step, I will be doing the preparation. So define the user profile, the task and the correct sequence of actions before you begin. Walk each step. For every action, ask the 4 questions and decide whether the user would succeed or fail. And the 4 questions are: right goal, actions visible, action effect link and progress visible. Then I will be building the story. Record a success or failure story capturing the reasoning and assumptions at each step. Then act on the failures. Each failure story points to a specific learnability fix in labeling, feedback or flow. So the walkthrough evaluates one task in depth, not the whole interface at once. Now coming to the success stories and the failure stories, it is the output of a walkthrough. It is supposed to be a believable account of each step for better or worse. So if it is a success story, a believable account of how a first time user, reasoning only from what they see, would choose the correct action and recognize their progress. It confirms the steps in is learnable without training or help. Failure story. An account of where and why that reasoning would break down, a missed action, a misleading label or absent feedback. Every failure story is a precise testable design fix waiting to be made. When your expert is doing this particular evaluation, they might also give you suggestions that this particular feature is very difficult to learn, and it is not because of just how you designed it, just because the task is very difficult to learn. Then in that case, you might also get a suggestion that have some training programs. So if you go into working in certain companies, or if you are a student in a university, you might already have gone through certain software training programs. Why that has happened? Because the cognitive walkthrough identified that it is not just the design of that particular feature, it is the complexity of the task that it is so daunting that some amount of training or help is required for the user, and hence the training programs are designed. So we will go through an example of the cognitive walkthrough now. So it is a task-based inspection through a first-time user's eye. The task over here is a first-time traveler who buys a single ticket from a station kiosk.
This is a cognitive walkthrough, a task-based inspection method that views an interface through a first-time user's eyes. Instead of testing with users, evaluators step through a single task, action by action, exactly as a new user would, and judge whether each step is learnable by exploration alone. Our task: a first-time traveler buying a single ticket from a station kiosk. Let's walk it. At every action, we ask the same 4 questions. 1. The right goal. Will the user be trying to achieve the correct effect here? 2. Is the action visible? Will they notice the correct control? 3. The action effect link. Will they connect that control to the result they want? And 4. Is progress visible? After acting, do they get feedback that they're on track? A confident yes to all 4 is a success story. Any no is a failure story. And a precise fix. First, we prepare our user, a first-time traveler, in a hurry, with no staff to ask. The task: buy one single ticket to the airport terminal. And the correct sequence: choose single journey, pick the destination, select the ticket type, pay, and collect. Now we walk each step. Step 1. The home screen. The user wants to buy one ticket. Question 1. The right goal. Yes, they intend to buy a single. But question 2. Is the action visible? Here it breaks down. Single journey is just one of 8 identical buttons. In railway language, a first-timer scanning for buy a ticket may not recognize it, and could mistake day travel card for the cheaper option. That's a failure story. The fix: make buying a single the clear primary action. In plain words. Step 2. Choose the destination. The user wants to enter where they're going. The action is visible. A search field and common stations. Right there. Typing airport terminal clearly maps to the goal. And the selection advances the screen. All 4 questions pass. Step 3. The ticket type. Adult is easy. But then, peak or off-peak. The options are visible. So question 2 passes. But question 3, the action effect link, fails. Off-peak is jargon. And nothing on the screen tells the user whether it's currently peak or off-peak. They can't connect the choice to their situation. So they guess. And may overpay. The fix is concrete. Show the current time and state it plainly. Step 4. Payment. Insert or tap your card is clear. So the first 3 questions pass. The user taps. And then, nothing. No. Processing. No. Approved. Question 4. Is progress visible? Fails. With no feedback. An anxious first-timer doesn't know it worked. And may tap again or walk away. The fix is simple and high value. An immediate processing. Then a clear, approved. Step 5 closes the loop well. Payment approved, appears. And the ticket and receipt are dispensed. Progress is unmistakable. Question 4 passes. A clean success story to end on. Pulling it together. 3 failure stories. Each a testable fix. The cluttered home screen. Make buying a single the primary action. The peak jargon. Show whether it's peak now. In plain words. The silent payment. Add immediate confirmation. And notice. We found these with no users. And no prototype. Just the task, the screens, and 4 questions asked honestly. That's a cognitive walkthrough. 1 task. Examined in depth. Through a learnability lens. Can a new user succeed by exploration alone? It won't catch everything. So pair it with user testing. But for first use, it's a fast, sharp way to turn every confusing step into an obvious one.
Okay, so now that you have gone through this video, what did you figure out? So the cognitive walkthrough figured out right goal, the first question, the user does intend to buy a single ticket. Action visible. Single journey is a small text link beneath 3 large promotional buttons. Action effect link. Once noticed, the wording clearly matches the user's goal. Progress visible. Selecting it advances the kiosk to the destination screen. So, what the failure story over here is, so you can see Q1, Q3, Q4 are all success. There is only one failure story, which is the question 2, which was the visibility of the action. So, people would have expected a single journey option to come up just after the main search icon or at the very beginning of the kiosk. So, Q2 fails because the user scans the 3 large buttons, finds none that fits, and hesitates. Fix. Make single journey a primary button of equal visual weight. If not, more higher visual weight, and let the advertisements come little bit below. Choosing an inspection method. So now we have discussed about 3 different usability evaluation methods. We discussed heuristic evaluation, cognitive walkthrough, and think aloud testing. Now how do I choose the right kind of an inspection method? So if we decide to go with heuristic evaluation, it gives a broad coverage against general usability principles. It is fast and surfaces many types of problems at once. So it is low effort, you require about 3 to 5 evaluators. It catches many problems in a broad sense, and it is best for early, cheap and whole UI sweeps. Cognitive walkthrough. It is deep on a single task, focused specifically on learnability for first time and infrequent users. It requires medium efforts, you require 1 to 3 analysts. It catches learnability gaps in a task, and it is best for onboarding and first use flows. Now coming to think aloud testing. Uses real users to reveal why problems occur, the strongest and most direct form of evidence. And think aloud technique happens with users, whereas heuristics and cognitive does not happen with actual users. Here the effort is pretty high. You require more than 5 real users. In fact, many more number of users depending on what task and how much confidence you want to have in the results that you are receiving. It catches real behavior and root causes. It is best for validating and explaining issues. So choosing and combining the methods. Which method answers your question is what you have to look at. So let's say my question is, where are the obvious flaws? So I can do a heuristic evaluation because cheap first sweep across the whole UI before anything else. Now my question is, can a newcomer figure this out? So then I will do cognitive walkthrough. Step a single key task to expose learnability barriers. My question is, what actually happens and why? Then perform a think aloud testing. Real users confirm and explain the problem that remain. So then you can decide in what sequence you will be combining them. So let's say, for example, I do the heuristic sweep first, which can be done by expert designers within the company itself, and it happens much faster, much cheap, and the whole interface is covered. Then I can do the walk the task, and here I will identify certain critical tasks against which I have to bring in these analysts who will do the cognitive walkthrough. Once this whole thing is done and the fixes are made, then I will go with test with users. Then I can use the think aloud, which will validate the fixes and reveal the root causes. So the bottom line over here is, inspection methods clear obvious flaws cheaply. User testing then validates and explains what remains. So it doesn't matter how many times I have to click, as long as each click is a mindless, unambiguous choice. So that's what you are trying to design. So even if your application requires lots of clicks, but each of these clicks does not put a lot of cognitive load and it is unambiguous, then it is not that big a problem. So a cognitive walkthrough checks that every step is an obvious choice. The key takeaways. In cognitive walkthrough, I do a task-based inspection. So always select the tasks that you think are the biggest learning challenges. So you do not need to do a cognitive walkthrough of the entire interface, because cognitive walkthrough has a learnability lens. It asks whether a new user could succeed by exploration alone without training or help. The 4 questions which are supposed to be answered by the analysts who are performing this task are whether the goal is right, whether the action is visible, whether the action effect link is happening or not, and whether after performing the action the user can see the progress or not. And this is applied at each step of the task that you have given. Then we will be documenting the success stories and the failure stories. The failure stories guide the fixes. Each breakdown maps to a concrete testable improvement in the design. So here are some of the references, and that brings us to the end of this particular week. In the next week, we will be talking about generative and creative methods. See you then.